Welcome back to the Road to National series. In today's episode, I'm going to take you through a dynamic effort lower workout. So my dynamic effort variation for this 3-week wave has been an 18-inch box squat, which I simply do off my bench. I am doing for this week, it is my third week in the 3-week wave, the heaviest week, and it's 85% of my 1 rep max. That is the total bar plus band tension for 3 sets of 5. So this 3-week wave, I was testing out doing 75, 80, 85% 1 rep max over the 3-week wave instead of 80, 85, 90. So normally on this week, I did a 90% 1 rep max in total, but the bar speed was always terrible. And the whole point of dynamic effort is to try and get it moving fast. So this at 85% moved great and was so much better than 90%. So from now on, I will be doing my dynamic effort like this, a successful 3-week dynamic wave in total. So now, moving on to the accessories, as you'll have seen as it just skipped through there was a quick warm-up set, and then I was on to good mornings. So this is one of the heaviest sets of good mornings I've ever done. I think the absolute heaviest I've done is 160 kilos, but I only did that for about a set of 6 to 8 versus I managed to get sets of 12 here, and I was trying to go as deep as I could, basically parallel with the ground, and I'm deliberately allowing my back to round a bit because I'm also wanting to work on back extension as well as hip extension. So for people from the bodybuilding world or people who think that you need to keep your back perfectly straight or even a little bit arched to have good form is a really nebulous concept. From an injury standpoint, good form is basically don't do anything your body's not physically prepared to do, but my back is prepared to do this because I always arch my back a little bit like this, round my back even when I do good mornings, in order to strengthen the back so that it is more conditioned for when I pull my deadlift with a slightly rounded back. And basically all top deadlifters pull with a slightly rounded back. One, it saves you a bit of range of motion. You're able to extend your arms further out, and that also engages your lats. But 2, it's just easier to brace with a slightly rounded back. And for whatever reason, everybody who's a top deadlifter does do it with a slightly rounded back. They don't have this over the top arch like some of the form police suggest that you're meant to have. So that was why I had a slight rounded back. I was very happy with these, and this is definitely the hardest I have ever pushed on this exercise, and one of the hardest I've pushed in total. So if you followed the channel at all, you'll know I'm a huge proponent of training to failure, which is very easy on isolation exercises when it comes to accessories. So on something like a chest press or a lat pull down, when you're safe and on the machine, or like even a bicep curl, you can push so close to failure because it's just one muscle working and you feel quite safe. On these, it felt very dangerous on these good mornings. So it's hard to push to failure. It's scary. The same as when I do things like elevated heel squats. So I've been leaving a few reps in reserve, still training hard, but trying to approach failure over time. And today I definitely pushed the hardest on those good mornings that I ever have. It definitely is scary pushing to failure because you feel like if you're going to fail, you're literally going to get crushed by the weight. But I've got the safety set up. You just need to know that you're going to be fine and push hard. So next accessory here is quad extensions. Now I'm doing these at 150 pounds, which is the heaviest I've been able to do in ages. If you followed the channel, you'll know I've been working through a knee injury, and quad extensions obviously is literally knee extension. It is directly taxing that knee as well as the quad, of course. But successfully, I was able to do these without any knee pain, and I'm basically the equivalent of my all-time strongest. So I think I did sets of 12 here, and that is the same as my lifetime best on these. So whilst I've had to deal with my knee injury, it hasn't actually held back the strength, and during the rehab process, I have actually made my legs probably their all-time strongest, which is fantastic. And on this second set in particular, I was able to push absolutely to failure. I even did that isometric at the end. That burnt the quad so much, like when I got off here, I was limp-legged in the quads for so long, it affected my next accessory here, which was calf raises. So I didn't get the block out for calf raises. I often do elevated calf raises where you stand on a block, and that helps you get a much better stretch on the calves. But because my quads were so wobbly, I literally felt like I was going to fall off the block. It requires more stabilization on the block. So I decided to just do flat calf raises, which are also great and actually develop the contraction, or for me personally, I feel the contraction in my calves even better. These were great. I just left them at 150 kilos because that was the same weight as the Good Mornings, and I was feeling, like I said, absolutely wiped out after the quad extensions and the first part of this training session. But this was about the perfect weight to use anyway. I managed to get a set of 20 on that first set, albeit with massively grindy reps at the end. And then I think I just managed to get a set of 18 on this second set. I can't remember, but that is definitely the most I've ever done with this weight again. That's a theme that you're hearing me say with all of my accessories in general, is that I'm constantly beating my records in terms of the number of reps with a weight. That is how I like to progressively overload. I just remember all of my PRs, and I have them all recorded now, so you can go back and see them throughout this series. You can see me progress, which is the design of this series as well. I want you guys to be able to see what it's actually like to try and train consistently for a while, and how progress comes, how long it takes. But yes, all of the accessories are progressing fantastically, which is brilliant, and I am constantly hitting PRs in terms of reps at different weights. That's the way I like to progressively overload. Pick a weight I've already done, remember what's the best amount of reps I've ever done on this before, and try and beat that. So the second to last accessory here was banded hip abduction. So using the roller here just helps stabilize the weight more, and it actually means that you can push out and abduct with both glutes, with both legs. Even the standing leg that's sort of grounded there, obviously you have to push off that as well in order to get it moving, whereas normal banded ones, you're sort of just standing on that leg and it is just working one adductor at the time. But these were great. These are heavier than I've done before, in terms of I just managed to wrap the band tension around a bit more to cause more tension in the band, and that is how I progressively overload these. But it's come at the cost of much less reps, and the fatigue in the adductors on the outside of the glutes was massive. Abductors, sorry, I get that wrong in literally every video. Abductors is away from you, adductors is towards your center line. So the last accessory here is hip hold. So this is just a small accessory that I haven't really seen anybody else do. I mean, I've not particularly looked hard to see if anybody else does do it, but I like to do this for the hip flexors to try and strengthen the hips. There's also a slight isometric tibialis raise, where you're obviously holding the kettlebell up with your foot, but I just find that this is a nice lower body accessory to do. I like to do it here as an isometric and with lightweight at the end of a taxing session. So instead of doing something like reverse hypers where I'm using quite a lot of weight, or glute kickbacks, again a lot of weight, the glutes are strong muscles, just doing these hip holds is a nice ending accessory for your session. And the other thing I like to do with these is change the angle of the hip hold. So for the first set, I sent my knees straight forwards, but on this second set, as you can see, I try and open my hips as much as possible. Well, the lifting hip, the standing hip is still basically facing forwards, and it just applies a slightly different training stimulus. It hits the hip in a slightly different way. It's all generally just to try and strengthen all of the small connecting muscles that people often neglect. I think with powerlifting, people often just think, right, quads, hamstrings, glutes, calves, they're the main ones. So do calf raises, quad extensions, hamstring curls, and then some sort of glute exercise, or things like RDLs, but don't bother with smaller exercises like this, and certainly not like hip abductions and adductions. I disagree with that strongly. I think you should be trying to develop your body as a total with your accessories. You could just literally, it's 2 exercises, throw it on the end of your session. So that is it for today's video. I hope you did in fact enjoy the video. If you did, drop it a like, drop it a comment, subscribe, click the bell, all of that wonderful stuff, and have a great day.